The jungle stretched endlessly beneath a rust-colored sky, a writhing mass of ancient foliage and twisted razor-tipped vines. Veros 7 was not meant for humans. The air carried the thick scent of damp decay, and the silence between the chittering insect swarms was oppressive, a predator's silence. Everything here hunted. Erik Carter pressed his back against the damp bark of a gnarled tree, his breath shallow, his pulse a hammer in his ears. His body ached from too many days of running, of clawing his way through the undergrowth with raw, bleeding hands. He had never meant to be here alone. The mission had been simple: recon, extraction, return. The Zhur'kai had ensured that wasn't an option. They had descended like wraiths from the sky, their ships sleek, black voids against the stars, landing with the silent grace of apex predators. They didn't raid. They didn't ask questions. They hunted. Humans, to them, were just another species to be tested. A warrior race, seeking trophies. A hunt without sport was nothing. The first shot had killed 2 of his teammates instantly, severing bodies with the kind of surgical precision that could only come from centuries of refinement. The others had been picked off one by one, some screaming, some silent, all devoured by the shadows. Carter had run. That was 8 days ago. Low, guttural clicking echoed from the canopy above. His body tensed. The Jurakai weren't just technologically superior, they felt superior. Their arrogance was their flaw. They didn't expect prey to survive this long. He had done more than that. He had adapted. Carter's fingers tightened around the crude knife he had fashioned from scavenged plating, the edge uneven but deadly enough. His rifle had 3 shots left. It wouldn't be enough if they found him. A distant, inhuman howl split the air. Not Zhurakai. Something worse. Veros 7 was a planet of monsters, and the apex among them was the Vorhian Skyreaper. He had seen it only once, a fleeting, nightmarish silhouette against the skyline, its wingspan eclipsing the twin suns. Feathers that shimmered with iridescent malice, a beak designed to tear through steel. It was said to be a divine predator to the Zhur'kai, a creature that even their greatest hunters refused to challenge directly. And now, Carter realized, he was stumbling straight into its territory. The ground beneath him trembled, a disturbance. In the balance of nature, something massive moved through the undergrowth. A shadow passed overhead, blotting out the sun for a fraction of a second. His breath hitched. Then, without warning, the jungle exploded into chaos. The air thickened with the weight of an impending kill. The jungle canopy trembled, leaves rustling in uneasy harmony as something colossal moved above. Erik Carter remained frozen, every muscle coiled, heart hammering in his chest. Then came the screech, a piercing, primal cry that shattered the silence like a war drum. It was close, too close. Carter turned sharply, instincts overriding rational thought. He sprinted forward, ducking under tangled roots and leaping across the uneven terrain. The ground beneath him sloped downward, leading into a ravine choked with mist. His boots slid over loose gravel, barely keeping him upright as he plunged into the thick fog. Somewhere behind him, a Zhur'kai war horn howled through the jungle. The hunt was still on. He had minutes, seconds maybe, before they would close in. They were faster, stronger, smarter in the ways of war. He had only what the jungle provided, the rotting carcass of a planet untouched by mercy. A sharp scent hit his nostrils, blood, thick and metallic. Carter skidded to a halt, eyes scanning his surroundings. The mist swirled lazily, parting just enough to reveal the slumped body of a Zhurakai warrior. Dead, fresh. The massive alien lay twisted and broken, its armor torn open like paper, ribs split wide, organs devoured. Carter's stomach churned. No blaster wounds, no burn marks. This was not the work of a plasma rifle or an energy blade. This was something feral, A breeze pushed the mist aside just enough for Carter to see it, a shifting obsidian mass perched upon a jagged rock formation above him, the Vorhian Skyreaper. The beast loomed in the dim light, its form half shadow, half nightmare. Its feathers gleamed, a shifting spectrum of black and blue, a natural armor designed for both flight and war. Its talons, longer than Carter's forearm, were still slick with fresh blood. Its beak, curved and jagged, twitched as if tasting the air, and then its eyes met his. Not the wild, empty gaze of a mindless predator. No, there was something else in those golden, slit-pupiled eyes. A presence, a calculation. The Skyreaper was watching him, studying him. Carter didn't breathe, didn't move. The moment stretched. A silent battle of wills between prey and something that had never known fear. Then, from the jungle, came a rapid series of clicks. The Zhur'kai were closing in. The Skyreaper's head snapped toward the sound, feathers flaring slightly. It made a low, guttural sound, something like a growl mixed with the deep resonance of shifting tectonic plates. Carter felt the vibration in his bones. Another war horn howled through the trees, followed by the rhythmic stomps of approaching hunters. Carter's mind raced. The Zhur'kai didn't just fear this thing, they revered it. To them, it was a divine hunter, a spirit of war and death. Killing one was forbidden, a blasphemy against their gods. But it could kill them, and maybe, just maybe, it could save him. His fingers tightened around the jagged wound on his forearm, a cut from earlier, still, fresh, still bleeding. Slowly, carefully, he smeared the blood across his hand and extended it outward. A silent offer. The Skyreaper's pupils contracted. It leaned forward slightly, its massive frame shifting, watching him with predatory curiosity. Then, in a blur of movement, it was gone. The jungle exploded into chaos. A Jurakai warrior emerged, from the mist, only to be ripped backwards, screaming. Carter barely had time to react before the jungle floor was painted in fresh blood. The jungle convulsed in terror. The Jurakai warrior barely had time to scream before the Skyreaper descended upon him like a living tempest. Its talons pierced armor, its beak tore through flesh, as if it were no more than damp paper. The warrior's body twisted violently, dragged skyward in a blur of feathers and blood. Carter didn't stay to watch. He ran. The mist swallowed him as he sprinted through the undergrowth, breath coming in sharp, burning gasps. The Zhur'kai were disoriented, their hunting formation shattered by the Skyreaper's attack. He had seconds, maybe minutes before they regrouped. He needed to use them. Somewhere behind him a guttural roar erupted. Then came the sickening crunch of shattering bone. The Skyreaper was still hunting. Carter weaved through the dense vegetation, every muscle in his body screaming for rest, but he ignored it. His mind raced through options. He had no weapons capable of taking down a Zhur'kai hunter. His rifle had 3 shots left. A knife against their armor was suicide. But the Skyreaper had no such limitations. He slid down a steep incline, landing in the shallow bed of a dried-up river. Overhead, black wings cut across the rust-colored sky, moving with impossible speed and precision. The Skyreaper wasn't just attacking, it was toying with the hunters. Another Zhur'kai cried out, cut short with a wet, brutal sound. Carter could hear them now, the hunters barking orders to regroup. He had to stay ahead of them. The only way to survive was to turn the hunt against them. He pressed himself against the riverbank, forcing his breathing to slow. His mind sharpened. Think, adapt, survive. The Skyreaper had reacted to his blood, not with aggression, but curiosity. It had chosen not to kill him. That meant something. The Zhur'kai worshipped the creature as a divine predator, but if Carter could make them fear its favor upon him, he might have a way to break them. Another body slammed into the ground not far from him, lifeless. The Skyreaper was clearing the battlefield one by one, And then, for the first time, the Zhur'kai hesitated. Their voices, usually so confident, now carried an edge of uncertainty. The Skyreaper had come between them and their hunt. That wasn't supposed to happen. Carter's mind latched onto a single insane idea. He stepped out of the mist, bloodied, breathless, and very much alive. The remaining Zhur'kai stared at him. For the first time since the hunt began, they saw a human standing in the open, unafraid, and above him, silhouetted against the burning sky, the Skyreaper perched atop a broken tree, watching. Carter didn't know what it meant to the Zhur'kai, but he could see it in their stance. Hesitation, fear, reverence. He raised his blood-streaked hand again, smearing more across his face and chest. The Skyreaper let out a deep, bone-rattling screech. And then, for the first time, the Zhur'kai took a step back. Silence clung to the jungle, thick and suffocating. The Jurakai warriors, killers, hunters, apex predators in their own right, stared at the human who refused to be prey. Above them, the Skyreaper loomed, its golden eyes burning in the twilight, talons digging into the shattered tree it had. Claimed as its perch, the jungle held its breath, caught between two forces that should never have been allied. Carter's heartbeat slowed, his body aching from days of pursuit, from wounds left unbandaged, from the impossible weight of survival. Yet he stood tall, unbowed, drenched in his own blood, marked by the Skyreaper itself. The Zhur'kai leader, warlord Zhur'kai, took a step forward. His armor, unlike the others, was adorned with ritualistic engravings, his battle-scarred frame bearing the weight of countless victories. In his four-clawed grip, his plasma glaive hummed with raw power. Zhur'kai wasn't afraid, not of Carter, not of the Skyreaper, but he was uncertain. Carter saw it in the warlord's slit-pupiled gaze, a flicker of hesitation, a fracture in the absolute confidence of a species that had never questioned its own supremacy. The Skyreaper flexed its wings, sending a ripple of energy through the clearing. It was waiting, watching, judging. Carter exhaled. If he was going to end this, it had to be now. He took a step towards Zhur'kai. The warlord's warriors tensed, shifting their weapons, but their leader did not give the order to strike. Another step, then another. Zhur'kai tilted his head, mandibles twitching in what might have been amusement or challenge. And then Carter did something no human, no prey, had ever done before. He threw down his rifle. The impact echoed in the clearing. Sharp against the hush of waiting predators, a flicker of movement from the Skyreaper, a shift of its iridescent feathers, a glint of something almost knowing in its alien eyes. The Zhur'kai watched. Carter raised his fists, a universal language, challenge, duel, honor. For the first time, Zhur'kai laughed, a guttural, clicking sound, deep and resonant, respect, recognition. The warlord extended his plasma glaive and deactivated it. A fight was coming, a test, one predator against another. The Zhur'kai circled in, forming a ritualistic ring around them. The jungle, once filled with screams and death, now bore witness to something greater. Carter charged first. The warlord moved like lightning, faster than anything human should have been able to react to. A strike to Carter's ribs sent him sprawling, pain exploding across his body, but he got back up. A second strike, a blur of motion. Carter dodged barely, twisting with the impact instead of against it. He had no weapon, no armor, no enhanced physiology, only his wits, his instincts, and the iron will that had carried humanity across the void. He was bleeding, battered, exhausted, but he was not broken. Zhur'kai saw it now, the defiance, the refusal to die, and for the first time in his warrior's life, he understood why humans were feared. The Skyreaper let out a cry that shook the trees, primal and deafening. It was not calling for the hunt, it was calling for victory. Carter surged forward, catching the warlord off guard, not with strength but with sheer relentless will. A strike to the throat, a twist of the wrist, a brutal impact that sent the Zhur'kai staggering. The jungle trembled. Shikor dropped to one knee. The other Zhur'kai watched in stunned silence, and then the warlord did the unthinkable. He bowed, a slow, deliberate gesture. One clawed hand pressed to his chest, a mark of respect. Carter, panting, stepped back. Blood dripped from his brow, his body screaming in agony. The hunt was over. The Skyreaper lifted its wings, a final triumphant cry tearing through the heavens, and just like that the Zhurakai withdrew, not in defeat, not in disgrace, but in acknowledgement. Carter, the last human standing, was no longer prey. The jungle exhaled, releasing the tension that had gripped it for so long. The Zhur'kai hunters, once relentless in their pursuit, stepped back. There, weapons lowered, their stances no longer that of predators circling prey. They had come for a hunt, for blood, for trophies, for glory. But what they had found was something far greater. Erik Carter stood amid them, body aching, breath ragged, but unbroken. His fists clenched at his sides, his chest rising and falling in deep heaving breaths. Every wound, every bruise, every drop of blood smeared across his skin told the story of survival, not just desperate endurance, but the kind of survival that turned prey into something more. Shikor remained on one knee before him, his warlord's armor scuffed, his body still, his head bowed. The gesture was unmistakable, undeniable, a mark of honor. No Zhur'kai spoke, none dared to break the weight of the moment. The Vorian Skyreaper, the divine predator they revered, perched above them, watching, its golden eyes flicked between Carter and the warlord, its vast wings settling into place as if acknowledging a truth only it understood. Carter, still catching his breath, took a step back. Shikor met his gaze. No hatred, no resentment, only understanding. Then, slowly the warlord rose. His warriors straightened, waiting for his command. He could still order the kill, still wipe the human from existence, but he did not. Instead, he turned his back. One by one, the Zhur'kai followed, their movement almost ceremonial, an unspoken decree passing between them. The jungle swallowed them, their forms vanishing into the mist. The hunt had ended, not with a kill, not with blood spilled in the name of honor, but with something new, an accord, a recognition, a shift in the laws of their people. Carter watched them go, his body swaying, exhaustion creeping in, but he refused to collapse. Not yet. A rustle from above. A shadow fell over him as the Skyreaper descended, talons sinking into the earth before him. Carter did not flinch. The massive beast regarded him, its iridescent feathers shifting in the dim light. The jungle, so long a place of fear and death, now stood still. Carter met the creature's gaze, his breath steady. He lifted his hand, the same blood-streaked hand he had offered before. For a moment the Skyreaper did nothing, then slowly it dipped its head. Not in submission, not in dominance, but in acknowledgement. A bond had been forged, between man and beast, between two forces that had no reason to align, yet had chosen to. Carter exhaled, allowing his body to finally release its tension. He had survived. He had won. But more than that, he had changed the game. The Zhur'kai would never hunt humans the same way again, and as the Skyreaper lifted itself back into the sky, disappearing into the twilight, Carter knew this was only the beginning. The jungle. Vera 7 was quiet now, not the eerie silence of a lurking predator, nor the uneasy hush before a kill. This was something new. Erik Carter stood alone in the clearing, his body aching, his mind caught between exhaustion and clarity. The Zhurakai had left, their warlord's bowed head speaking louder than any words. The hunt was over. Above him, The sky stretched into endless crimson and gold, the dying light casting long shadows across the land. The Skyreaper was gone, its massive form disappearing into the heavens with a final, haunting cry. But Carter knew it was still watching. His breath steadied, his hands flexed. He was still stranded, still surrounded by the wild and untamed forces of Veros 7. But everything had changed. The Zhur'kai would return, not as hunters, but as something else. He had not merely survived the hunt, he had rewritten its rules. Rustle in the undergrowth. Carter tensed, his fingers curling instinctively around his knife before he spotted the figure emerging from the shadows. A Zhur'kai warrior, left behind. Not an enemy, not an executioner, a messenger. The warrior tilted its head, scanning him with reptilian eyes, then slowly pressed a clawed hand to its chest, a sign of respect. Carter's lips curled slightly. He had no idea what it meant for the future, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was no longer prey, and the galaxy was about to learn why.